everybody, you're looking good. It's been a long time, I know. I hope you're well. If life's not treating you good, you just hang in there because things will get better. Many of you have been watching Sailing Nervous for a long time and you wonder, why did they disappear? It's been a year, 2 years, 3 years, now 4 years. Well, I wanted to share with you. Let's go back to the spring of 2022, a long time ago. We had just sold our home. I was so happy. Now we could live on the sailboat and expand our channel. My friend Jeff had finally fixed the baby stay. That was all squared away. And we had bought brand new sails from Quantum Sails. So I was hoping for a new second season to move forward. The plan was after we sold the house, we moved in with my folks for a couple of days. She was to stay here with my folks. And then I was to go down to the boat to clean it up, stock it up, and get it ready for our next adventure. That's what my expectation and hope was. And that's what we had communicated. So after a week, I called my wife up and said, boat's clean, ready to come pick you up. And she said some words that just changed my life forever. After 35 years of marriage, in my 60s. And she told me, I'm not coming to the boat. In fact, I don't want to see you. I don't want to talk to you. I'm done. And that was it. I didn't then see her for 6 months. She ran away. Couldn't reach her. She would answer my phone calls. So I, of course, went into a panic and called her right away, and that was it. She wouldn't answer. And that was the beginning of my nightmare. She left. She ran away. She never even told me that's what she was going to do, that she wanted to do. And so it hit me like an arrow upside my head, a bullet in my heart. I was completely unprepared. And maybe some of you can relate to that. So that's why I wanted to come back online. I have a lot of things to share with you. Now, initially, I was hesitant because I don't want a bunch of haters saying nasty things about me. And it is hard to be vulnerable, right? But the reason I'm doing it is because maybe if it will help someone, then it's worth it for me. I'll take abuse and ridicule and scorn and contempt from anyone. If it will help some people, then to me, it's worth it. In the next episode, I'll talk to you about what happened when I realized that she was gone and I walked off that boat alone in a panic with no home, no wife. Even my family was just not there. And so I decided to show her that I wanted her back at any cost. I enrolled myself into a alcohol rehab, the Ashley Center on the Chesapeake, a very famous place. So I enrolled right away into a 30-day treatment center, hoping maybe this will win her back if she sees that I'm willing to do anything. And then I went into this rehab scared, alone, anxious, panicky, but at least it was on the Chesapeake, right? I could see the Chesapeake Bay from my window in my room, and I stayed there for a whole month. So in the next episode, we'll look at what happened after that. Can there be new hope? So follow me, and I really appreciate you watching it. Thanks. Thanks for watching. Hello, brave explorers and intrepid adventurers. You're looking good. I hope your day is going great. And if it's not, just hang in there. Tomorrow will be better. So in our first episode, I shared with you how the dream ended. The boat was ready, the house was sold, and the marriage I thought I was still living in had ended. And I was left standing there wondering how the woman that I had loved for decades and who I thought loved me was gone, without a trace, and not coming back to the boat. Not now, not later, never. This episode is about what happened after the shock. Because when somebody leaves you suddenly, they desert you and disappear, the shock lingers, and it doesn't go away right away. Your mind cannot accept it all at once. This can't be happening. If she sees that I'll go into a rehab, inpatient, serious hospital, that'll show her that I really want to please her. I know she hadn't really ever been thrilled about me drinking. She was not a drinker at all, teetotaler, whatever you call it. But I was always loving my cold beer ever since I was like 15. You know, sometimes when you drink too regularly, you start making some bad decisions under the influence. And that's not an excuse, but it is an explanation. The first thing when I gave them information to the Ashley Center, they wanted to know emergency contact, and I, of course, listed my wife. Evidently, they called her because then they called me back and said, your wife refuses to be your emergency contact. As I got to the front gates of the Ashley Center, I got a call from the administration of the Ashley Center, and they said, we can't let you in. I said, why not? We need a COVID pickup person because if while you're in treatment you get COVID, you can't just take an Uber out. You have to give us the name of someone to pick you up, and it's usually your spouse since you're married. But we called Amy, and she said she would not be your COVID pickup person. So that kind of gave me a little warning, a little omen of things to come. But I still, hope springs eternal in the human heart. And so I had to call a friend up, and they vouched for me, and they told the administration that if I got COVID, they would come pick me up. So I'll never forget the day that I drove up that long driveway, went into the Ashley Center. I didn't know what to expect. I just remember I was just absolutely broken. I was realizing all the time that she really was gone. She didn't even want to be my emergency contact. She didn't even want to be my COVID pickup person. It was awful. I wouldn't wish that kind of emotional experience to my worst enemy. I did try to stop beer, and I had a hard time stopping. In fact, some of you might remember an episode where I fell off the boat and was rescued by a wonderful Vietnam veteran. Well, revisit that episode, because what's not listed in that particular episode was that it was late at night. I just drank 4 16-ounce Millers and went up on deck at night, to film something, like there's going to be something to film in the dark. And that's how I fell off the boat. After that, I tried to quit. I started a program called naltrexone, where you would take a pill 1 hour before you're going to drink whatever you want. And over time, it basically affects the part of the brain that enjoys the feeling of the alcohol. And within 6 months, every time you drink, it just doesn't feel great. So I started that. After about a month of the beers tasting like nothing, I drank wine one night and I was like, it tastes like lemonade. I began to throw the pill away because, I wanted my cold beers, and, I didn't really see it as a problem. But clearly, it was a problem. Now, one good thing was that I called my old Army father and told him on my way in I was going into a rehab. And he said to me, son, I'm really proud of you. It takes a real man to admit that you've got an issue and a problem and you want to stop drinking. But yeah, I was really blessed by my father, his support, and not only that, but his respect. One of the things I really looked forward to at Ashley was the family program, because there's a process where they contact the family. I was hoping it would be Amy, but she didn't want anything to do with it or with me. So my daughter was the one who was the family program. They contacted her. They sent her a video on describing the medical issues involved with people that are drawn to over drinking and some of the science behind it. And they then schedule a meeting with her and the counselor, separate from the patient. And then finally, they set up an appointment with the family and the patient and the counselor. So I was really looking forward to it. So I went up there to have my family meeting. I felt so alone, so disconnected. And this is about the 3rd week that I was there. The counselor came out and he said, we canceled the family meeting. I was like, why? I was really looking forward to it. It's my daughter. They said, well, actually, your daughter is not interested in supporting your recovery. She's interested in punishing you. And she said that you need to face the legal and financial consequences of your bad behavior. I was really devastated to hear that. Divorce is difficult. I guess children have to take sides. But I thought my kids were old enough to understand that it takes 2 people to make a marriage. But regardless, This is part of the brokenness that I went through. Loss of family, loss of home, and I began to get suicidal. When I walked out of that 30-day treatment facility, there was no home waiting, there was no wife waiting, there was no children waiting, there was no family. And the discharge counseling process really urged me, whatever you do, do not return to the boat, because you'll be isolated there even more. Instead, since you don't have a home, you need to go live in a halfway house with other alcoholics and young drug addicts. So to show my willingness to Amy that I would do anything and not return to the boat, I went into a halfway house. Yeah. This next episode will describe what that was like for me. Someone that was used to living in nice homes, having to live in a little corner of a room with other young roommates and a little tiny twin bed. It was very humbling. 64 years old, going into a halfway house. And what's worse, I was there for 6 months. And if you're a hater and you want to send me judgmental things, you know what? Go ahead. I don't really care. Nothing really hurts me anymore. I've kind of been through hell. So yeah, send me your judgments if you want. If you're a friend of mine, please comment. And thanks for following along this story, because although it does get worse, it does get better, because you can't keep a good man down. And I would drive by, and it really was hurt. It really broke my heart to see where she was living, because we'd always lived in really nice homes, and yeah, so it really made me sad. I just felt so grieved that I had hurt her and that she had left. I just wanted to make it up to her, and I felt worried for her. I just felt like I was tumbling off a cliff. I had no attachment except to Amy, and she was gone. I would call and I couldn't reach her, and she truly was my anchor. I lost my anchor. You know what happens when you're, in the intercoastal waterway and you lose your anchor? It's kind of easy to run aground. So yeah, I really ran aground when she left. These pictures were taken at the time, and you can see it in my eyes, the sense of despair and hopelessness. It was awful. There was a halfway house that I kind of reluctantly agreed, but I really didn't have any choice, because I didn't have a home and I didn't want to return to the boat. Plus, I wanted to go find Amy. I was really serious about not drinking and wanting to reconcile with her. So I entered the halfway house. Go, go and beg her to come back, show, go, definitely.
Hey, Sarah!
One day, I went and got some flowers. I drove by where she was, and I pulled into the parking lot area, and she had a first floor apartment facing the parking lot, and I wasn't really sure what I was going to do. I was really wrestling with myself, and there were many times that I drove by where she was and would call a friend and say, I don't know what to do. Yeah. So it's really hard for a man like me to not, go after what you want. I'm really not passive. I've learned to surrender more, that's for sure. But I have a strong will, and I had a strong love for her. But yeah, one day, it was a Sunday, and I wanted to just drive through the parking lot. Well, I drove through the parking lot, and she was on the porch watering some flowers. And I got out of the car and just kind of raised my hand, kind of like peace, I come in peace. And the other hand had flowers. But I stayed in the parking lot. I didn't come up onto the property. And she walked towards me, and we were about, 4 feet face to face. And, she began to cry. And of course I cried. It was really awful. I told her I was sorry, and she told me she was praying for me. I told her that I loved her, and she told me that she was still going through with the divorce. I really did want to kill myself and began to research how to do so. And I found the perfect answer. I found actually a substance that is used all over the world to end things very quickly, literally within 2 to 3 minutes. In fact, this substance was sold as a sleep aid in America in the 1950s, and maybe earlier too, but I know it was in the 50s. But it's a deadly, deadly substance. And in fact, the actress Marilyn Monroe took an overdose of this particular sleep aid. And I was living in this halfway house, which I just felt so disconnected from everything in this life, everything in this world. And every person, I felt completely alone and tormented with anxiety. You know, they say the shock of losing a spouse or the death of a spouse is made worse if it's a sudden death or if the spouse deserts you without warning. So I really felt sick. I felt physically ill. And doctors say that certain chemicals are released through trauma, and it does begin to affect and to trigger you into experiencing tremendous despair and deep depression. A lot of people can't relate to that. They can't understand how someone could be so down. Why would you want to end it all? But there's a physiological piece to it, okay? It's like telling someone with an actual, literal broken leg, something that can be observed, hey, come on, why don't you get up and run the track with me? And you don't understand that it's not just about their emotions or their will, it's physical as well. So having said that, I began to want to get out of the unrelenting pain, and I wasn't able to see any hope, and so I began to think of a plan. So the first plan that came to me, I wanted to make sure that no one found me because I didn't want to traumatize somebody. It must be terrible to find someone that's, ended it. So I thought, okay, here's something. Here's a problem-solving approach. I'll take a plane up to Iceland, Reykjavik, Iceland, and then I will go and see one of the many lava-spewing volcanoes. People get up fairly close to it. And I thought, I could get up real close to that big lava pool and then just run, and dive right in. And be burned up in a short period of time, and of course the body wouldn't be found. No one's going to go in and try to fish it out. So I thought that was a good plan. So I started making plans, looking at the flight schedule. And I guess someone at the halfway house, well, you're kind of living on top of people, so you don't have any privacy, but maybe they saw me writing in my journal. Maybe I left my journal, but someone got wind of it and told the staff, and they asked me to come in and see the psychiatrist, the psychologist that was on staff there. And I said, can you please give me something, for my pain? This is unrelenting. I'm just jumping out of my skin. And the doctor said, you know what? There ain't no pill for what you got. You should be upset. You've lost your home. You're unemployed. You've lost your wife. Your kids won't talk to you. You've lost everything. Your life is in shambles. There ain't no pill for that. He said, I can give you a non-addictive sleep aid, which I said, great, give it to me. But I knew that just a sleep aid was not going to be enough to fix my problem. And so I began to think through my plans. And I thought, maybe at the last minute, I would get scared of the heat coming from the volcano. So I thought, well, there's got to be an easier, maybe less painful way. And I did more research. It took me a couple days, and I found the perfect answer. I found actually a substance that is used all over the world to end things very quickly, It's literally within 2 to 3 minutes. In fact, this substance was sold as a sleep aid in America in the 1950s, and maybe earlier too, but I know it was in the 50s. But it's a deadly, deadly substance. And in fact, the actress Marilyn Monroe took an overdose of this particular sleep aid. And it's completely illegal in America now. You can't get it in America. So I researched, well, where can you get it? You know, it's fast acting, 2 to 3 minutes, and it's all over. I saw you could kind of order it through a drop ship placement, kind of shaky, sketchy or whatever, from China, communist China. And I thought, hey, you know, I'm not going to pay money, and wound up getting talcum powder. So I kept up the research, and I found you can get the real deal in a pharmacy in Mexico. And it's used there legally if you need to put your animal down. So I thought, oh, that's perfect. That is great. That's the plan. I will go to Mexico, go into the pharmacy. I'll purchase some for my quote-unquote sick dog. And then I'll walk out into the desert, or I'll go down to the beach at night, take it. I'm done. I'm in another country. So, you know, I'll make sure I don't have any identification on me. And certainly no one is going to actually find me. Although then I thought, well, what if I wash up and, you know, some little kid. So I thought maybe the going out in the desert would be the perfect way. So it was the pharmacy in Mexico, walk out in the desert. That's the way to do it. So I had the plan. But all these plans had the same ultimate problem for me. You see, they would have been really easy to do if I had believed that at the point of death that I would just be asleep, unconscious, just not existing, just fast asleep, blackout, forever and ever. But I have some reason to believe that our consciousness, some call it the soul, spirit, it survives physical bodily death. I just thought, wouldn't that be awful? I suddenly feel better and I come out of my body and I'm like, oh, I feel better, but I think I just killed myself. Was that the best thing to do? So I was really torn. I got to get this pain to end. And then I thought, I won't kill myself today. I'll just take it one day at a time. And if by the time I'm 70, I'm still in this emotional, mental state, then I'll kill myself. Then I'll kill myself when I turn 70. So that's how I enabled myself to just survive through the worst 2 years of my life. Christmas time came. When I was in the rehab, an older counselor had said to me, if your wife contacts you, by Christmas, I think you're gonna have won her back. But if you don't hear from her at Christmas time, she's gone. So I was so eager for Christmas to arrive, and Christmas Eve came, and I woke up the next morning, realized that no one had contacted me, and I thought about the year before, Christmas with my family, in my beautiful home, with my beautiful wife and my 3 beautiful children, their spouses, and my little granddaughter. And it was such a beautiful time of sharing and laughter and good food and just being together with family.
Oh my gosh. This is gonna make me cry every time. All right, so every month I'm gonna cry.
Why don't you show everybody the pictures?
Please don't.
They're really good.
I will.
Where's she gonna look?
Please don't.
Wow.
Christmas trees on the wall.
Anywhere in the house. I was like, first of all, I don't want to. Also, it's too sensitive.
And here I was a year later, waking up alone. The house I was in was empty. The other patients had gone to some Christmas activity, which I didn't really want any part of. Because, when you're feeling like you don't want to live anymore, you tend to avoid people. So I kind of persevered through Christmas Eve and tried not to think about me and my wife's favorite movie, which was It's a Wonderful Life with Jimmy Stewart. And I woke up on that Christmas morning, the place was empty, thinking about last year's Christmas, the tree, the food, the laughter, family that I loved so much. Where were they? They were gone. They didn't reach out to me. Nobody called to wish me Merry Christmas, let alone come. We had no home. I had no home, no tree. Christmas was a torment. So I knelt on my little bed, next to my little bed, and I prayed and I prayed and I apologized to God for what I had done that had caused this terrible, terrible loss. And then I began to cry, softly at first, but then it just built up. And then I just couldn't hold it in anymore after several months of trying to be strong and trying to persevere. I just began to cry so out loud, so out of control, like a wail, like an awful sounding wail came out of the deepest part of my soul. Even now, just, it brings back such awful memories. And then that cry just began to merge into a scream. And I screamed and screamed for several minutes. And when I was done screaming, I realized there was no hope. That it was over. She wasn't coming back. My kids didn't want anything to do with me. And the torment was, I felt so guilty, yet I also felt that it was so unfair. And I was just in a place of real emotional torment. And that's when I began to develop those different plans that I had shared in episode 4. So as the new year approached, I used to look forward to the new year because my daughter would leave her daughter, my granddaughter, with me and my wife.
Whoa, that's so high.
What's your name?
Olaf.
Olaf. For like 10 days, while they went on a little vacation. And we used to have such a good time with her. I used to look forward to that every year. And this year, I found out through my father that they had gone, my daughter had gone on her traditional vacation and had left my little granddaughter with my wife. And yet my wife didn't even call me to say, hey, maybe I could drop her off. You could see her for a day. No, nothing. And it just really hurt me that my daughter would, in essence, not even let me see my granddaughter. And I thought I was a good grandfather, frankly. But this is part of the darkness that I went through and part of the bottom that I hit for such a long time. Thanks again for watching. This is difficult for me to share these things. And partly I don't even know why I'm doing it, but I've really been blessed to get such an awesome response from you guys that have been viewing. And it really makes a big difference and it makes it worthwhile. Because I feel like if we're transparent, or if I'm transparent, maybe somebody could get help or be helped by what I'm sharing. Normally we present the way we want to look to others or persona, which is, natural. But I feel like I just need to be honest and transparent in the hope that someone might benefit from my mistakes and my losses. And then also be encouraged when things begin to turn around, which they will. So stay tuned, and thanks so much for being with me during this retelling. You take care of yourself. But my wife was close enough that I could almost feel her presence. I used to imagine, wouldn't it be great? I'm done in the counseling center, work one night, and I walk out to the parking lot, and there she is waiting for me, and she throws her arms around me and says, I'm sorry I overreacted and ran away, but I was scared. And then I say, I understand. I don't blame you. I love you. It's so good to see you. But that fantasy never manifested into reality. I was so desperately trying to get my wife back. But evidently, what God was doing was he was trying to get me to get myself back, to return to myself, who I actually am, not who I became through the influence of all those years of alcohol abuse. Well, in the last episode, we talked about what that first holiday season alone was like. So now we turn into January 2023. I was still living in a halfway house, a place that I really hated. I learned a lot at the 30-day inpatient Ashley Center the live-in rehab, that was a great place. It was very, very helpful, and then, enabled me to be, sober for years and years. So, but the halfway house was, frankly, I think it was a real shit show. I don't want to, downgrade the place. I'm sure, it's different for every person. Every person has a different experience, So I'm just sharing facts for me. If you'll notice in this series, I'm just telling you my experience. I'm not making judgments. But for me, I did not respect the leadership, and I thought it was a very poorly run halfway house. But then again, it's like saying the prison was poorly run. Well, yeah, what do you expect? It's a prison, right? It's not a country club. But January 2023 turned, and the first positive step happened, as a lot of you know, before I started sailing and drinking beer. I was an ordained pastor. I was a professional counselor, college professor, published author. Ironically, one of my first books, published by Bethany House Publishers, was called 3 Compulsions That Defeat Most Men, and it was about oversex, over drinking, or overworking. And it used the 12-step recovery model with Christ as the higher power. And so it was a popular book, and it was successful. It was a real positive experience, but very ironic, I felt, because, I knew intellectually those things that I just shared because of my advanced formal education, but I didn't have any experience of it. So I guess now I'm an expert because, I went through it. Someone still believed I had something to offer. I was offered a position on staff as a professional counselor again at the Peacemaker Center, which is an outpatient counseling center, a Christian counseling center. And my old boss, he said, come on, come aboard. One of the things that made me hopeful was that of all the places she could have moved to, and of all the places I could have wound up, literally the Peacemaker Center was less than a mile down the road from where she wound up to have moved into. We're in the same town now. And that was something that made me think, oh, what does that mean? How we can be sometimes we think there's a synchronicity, and it actually doesn't necessarily mean anything, but we look for reasons to believe, don't we? I was believing that it was some type of sign that God was opening a door, but that was not the door that God was opening for me. The door that was opening for me was to return to the ministry that I had left many years earlier. And when I was in that phase of my life for 20 years, it was the happiest time of our life, for our marriage, for our family. So it looks like I was going back into the ministry now that I was sober, and now that I had maybe something to share on a deeper level than just intellectual knowledge. So it certainly made me feel good. It made me start to find meaning, because for the first time since my life collapsed, someone trusted me with something very important, which was the care of other people. And that was truly a humbling experience. And maybe some of the suffering that I had really gone so astray that this was a correction. And I was, going back to where I started from. So I remember I had said initially, when my life was in shambles, I had lost my wife, I had lost my home, I was unemployed, and I was able to start using my gifts. And plus, I'm sober. I had no cravings to even drink. Drinking beer was the last thing on my mind. Absolutely no cravings, no desire for it whatsoever. So, but my wife was close enough that I could almost feel her presence. I used to imagine, wouldn't it be great? I'm done in the counseling center, work one night, and I walk out to the parking lot, and there she is waiting for me, and she throws her arms around me and says, I'm sorry I overreacted and ran away, but I was scared. And then I say, I understand. I don't blame you. I love you. It's so good to see you. But that fantasy never manifested into reality. And when we don't accept reality, we always suffer, don't we? Because reality is like God. It rules. So we might not like reality, but we are going to have to accept it on a certain level to be able to have peace and to be able to move forward. Thanks for listening, and keep watching. I really appreciate you walking with me through this retelling of something that was just awful. And I am glad that I didn't off myself, because what do you see what happens as we move forward? Good things are in store. Thank you so much, everyone. You've been so awesome. Your comments are great. It sounds like a lot of you have been through the same things that I've been through, and you know the pain. Well, I want to thank you all for watching this series. And so now we come to that first quarter of 2023. And I was about 64 years old. I was going to turn 65 in a couple months in April. And I was praying every day for my wife to not decide to actually divorce me. And I just prayed every chance I got. And excuse me. So sure enough, after the new year of 2023, the papers came. But the attorney evidently didn't accomplish the most basic thing that an attorney is required to do, and that is serve the right person. So I actually wasn't served. My father was served the papers. Now, I had been getting a letter from my wife saying, I want a quick divorce, I want a fair divorce, and I want a prompt divorce. Okay? And my children were also calling me and saying that Mom's going to send you the contract, which is a property settlement agreement, and you are to sign it. No negotiations, no response, just sign it. And if you don't sign it, then we'll know that you're a bad man. And I would say to them, of course, I haven't even seen the contract yet. I don't know if it's fair or not. And they're like, oh, are you saying that it wouldn't be fair? So actually, in the adult world, when people are going to divorce, you sit down and you negotiate, the settlement of property. And if you can't agree, that's fine. You can take it in our county to a master who will give a recommendation, and it's very objective. In fact, when I practice law, I prefer to do it that way because then there's no after sense of, oh, it wasn't fair or they did this or the master makes an objective recommendation based on marital assets. Anything acquired between the date of the wedding and the date of the separation is considered a marital asset and has to be equitably distributed. Likewise, any debt that is acquired between the date of the wedding and the date of the separation is considered marital debt and also has to be equitably distributed. And when couples can't agree, then the master will do it for them. It's like a couple $100. It really saves a lot of lawyers' fees. But of course, in this instance, and I had so much shame about, going to the rehab. And I was told in the rehab, actually, the counselor said, do not sign any legal papers until you have a year of sobriety, because most people have so much shame about coming out of a rehab. You're just not in the right frame of mind, and you're going to, you won't be able to care for yourself. You won't be able to be good to the future you. You'll do something out of guilt, out of shame. But of course, I didn't listen to that. I wanted to show my wife that I would do anything. And if she wanted a quick divorce and she wanted me to sign the agreement, no questions asked, they had prepared, evidently. I don't know for sure. But it sounded like, it was might have been prepared by family. My daughter and my wife. I have reason to think that, but I don't know for sure. So at any rate, I just also, in one of the notes that my wife had said, she said she was willing to meet with me after the divorce. And that I was like, fine, I'll give her the divorce, just anything to be able to meet with her. And she had told my mom, when my mom said, why don't you talk to him? And she said, because he's too persuasive and I don't want to talk to him because then I might not go through with it, I guess, is what the implication was. And again, I'm trying to just stick to facts that I know. I don't want to surmise. I don't know what other people are thinking, and I don't know what's in other people's hearts. And a lot of people assume that they do, and they make statements that show that they are judging another person's heart or motives, and we just simply can't do that. I mean, we're not God. We don't have the ability to really determine the motives of someone's heart. And that's, there's a scripture I like that says, in the context of Paul was basically saying, I don't really care if I'm being judged by you. My conscience is clear, but that doesn't make me innocent either. I will wait till the Lord appears because he will judge according to the motives of people's hearts. And you see, when we judge, we only judge the outer behavior, right? we cannot judge the motive of their heart. That's reserved for God. Only He can see the heart. So that's why we're told repeatedly, if you're a believer, I mean, if you're not a believer, you can do whatever you want to do. But if you're following Christ and you know Him, then we are not to judge. And when we do find ourselves judging, because it's natural and human to do so, we can catch ourselves and we can say, Lord, I'm sorry. I don't mean to judge them. I pray you bless them. So I'm trying to, just report the facts that I experienced and just, my own opinions. So at any rate, I did call the attorney, and I guess I vented some of my frustration at him as opposed to my frustration, frankly, with my wife and my children. Because, I had a lot of emotions running. I had a lot of grief, sadness, shame, remorse, regret, but I also had anger, So I told him, I said, okay, number one, you didn't serve the right person. All right, now lawyers don't like to hear that, okay, because that's like a doctor operating on the wrong patient. I mean, it's just so basic. A basic legal skill is you have to be able to identify the right person that you're going to serve papers on. The process server needs to be given some input, not just their address, right? So I also said, you have the wrong, I could file to change the jurisdiction because neither of us live in the county that you are filing this complaint in. And I might not agree to that. I might want to say it needs to be in Chester County, which is where both of us reside, and have been residing for the past 6 months. So, and there were a couple other things that I could have done with him. And I did, posture because I was, I just felt so unempowered, right? So I kind of did my legal thing. And, but, it was merely me just kind of venting. And when the day was done, basically, I also emailed the lawyer and said, fine, send me the papers to the right person, or I will just sign a voluntary acceptance of service, and we can move on. So the papers came, and I was frankly pretty shocked. It was just awful to see, Jones versus Jones. And I was like, wow, this is serious, man, when you sue somebody. I'm being sued, And I just rolled over and took it, frankly, because I loved my wife and I didn't want to cause stress. I could have easily bankrupted her I don't need to hire a lawyer. I was a family attorney. I know how to operate without having to pay a lawyer. But of course, I'm not going to do that. But I could have just certainly made an issue out of the venue, about it not being properly served. I could have delayed things. And I also could have filed for a master and asked for a master to divide the assets. But I didn't. And I would have, I know the kind of deal I would have gotten from a master because they factor in a certain amount of things. And one of the things was my age. I was already in retirement, and I'm 10 years older than her, and she still has 10 years to build up her assets before she would get to retirement age. So there's a lot of factors that, would have benefited me. But I didn't do it. I didn't take any of those options, didn't take any of those benefits. I didn't fight it. I just signed it. And when the contract came in the mail itself, I just signed it. And a lot of people were critical of that at the time, but I didn't want to fight her. I wanted to win her back. So I can tell you this, though. 4 years later, God has blessed me financially. I am really well off. And sometimes when you do the right thing, God will bless you. Sometimes you do the right thing and God doesn't bless you the way you think it would. But I believe God always answers our prayers, always. And the answer is either going to be yes, okay, he says yes. Or he might say, not yet. Or he might say, I have something better for you. And at the time, I couldn't imagine what could be better than a reconciliation with the wife that I love. And, we have a happy ending. I changed, stopped drinking, but it was not to be. And I began to accept that, although 2013 was an awful year, and I really wanted to get out of that halfway house, that's for sure. I hated it there, right? And I was given an opportunity to house sit, so I went and moved into someone's house and the name of the house, street, was Cemetery Lane. And that's the way I felt. Those months on Cemetery Lane was when I was the most depressed and suicidal. And I'll tell you a story about that season. In the next episode, we'll talk about Cemetery Lane and my conversations with the Suicide Prevention Hotline, which I called regularly, and it was actually helpful to talk to someone. But there was a unique situation that happened one time when I called, and I want to share that with you as well. So that'll be for the next episode. And I also want to say, and thank you so much, everyone. You've been so awesome. Your comments are great. It sounds like a lot of you have been through the same things that I've been through, and you know the pain. And I just take my hat off to you. I also have some veterans that are writing, commenting, and I especially want to thank the veterans. Thank you. Thank you for your service, and I would like to just honor you and bless you. All right, I will talk to you all soon, and keep looking up. Things will get better. This is a Korean War veteran's hat. Now, I'm not a Korean War veteran. This was my father's hat. I was with him when he passed away a couple of days ago. But this isn't only about the man who once wore this hat. It's about the man who I hated to live with, and yet I moved in with him to take care of him these last 2.5 years of his life. He also had a disability from the Korean War. In those days, they didn't give earplugs to the soldiers, and can you imagine being in a battle? And he was actually anti-aircraft, artillery. He didn't have earplugs, and when he left, he was pretty much deaf, just ringing tinnitus in his ears, and he had a 10% rating, and you don't get any money for a 10% war-related service disability. So, I advocated, got him retested, and I got it up to a 40% rating. And at 30%, you start getting money. So I was able to get him an extra $1,000 a month from the government for his hearing loss due to the Korean War damage.
I'm Vince's dad. He's a great guy. He stepped in to take over when I lost my wife a couple of years ago to look out for his old man.
He needed help. He was 92 years old. In episode 7, at the end of that year, the divorce papers came through, November 2023. And then in a few weeks later, my mother died. And when my mother died, I was with her, and I told her that I would take care of Dad. So I moved in with my father. Now, when I left the halfway house, as in episode number 3, I appealed to my wife, but she said she was still going to go through with the divorce. And after I left that halfway house, I found myself on a little room in Cemetery Lane, and it wasn't a home. It was just a place to lay my head and to sleep. And it was during those months that I went through the most severe depression. Moving in with my father, I did not want to do it, and I felt overwhelmed. How am I going to take care of this old guy? And I was really overwhelmed. I had very little, emotional bandwidth to attend to him. I told him, I said, I got your back. I protect you, get you clear up your finances, put you on the budget you need to be on. I got your insurance, long-term disability insurance back, and I helped him do the things he couldn't do. So I got him the nurses. I got him aides that came in from 10 in the morning till 9 o'clock at night. And so, as he continued, we got closer, actually, very close. And he was real supportive, and I was real supportive of him. And I took him to church. And he joined the Holy Ghost Orthodox Church, which he loved going to church. And, he was grieving the loss of a 70-year marriage. They were married for 70 years, my mom and him. And, he didn't have anyone to trust. My older brother had died in 2020. Love you. And so, he really leaned on me, and I'm thankful that I was able to cover his back and to do the things that I did for him, which is really a result just of my law school training. I'm a retired attorney. I knew how to take care of him on that level, and he needed it. I feel bad for the elderly that are taken advantage of, scammed, and oh my gosh, and then people would call him, salesman calling every day, and he would get mad. He'd say, you can't even speak English, and and he would get all agitated. So I got a product where when someone calls, you push this number, it blocks it, stop harassing my father and stuff. So I feel good about caring for him. He had gotten himself into a lot of trouble, spending way beyond his means. I would get in the mail 3 silver sugar bowls, and I would say, "Hey, Dad, we have a sugar bowl. Did you order 3 silver sugar bowls?" And he'd say that he didn't remember doing that. And so I knew I had a lot on my hands to take care of him. He initially was getting, 9 hours a week free care from the Veterans Center from the VA. I was able to advocate for him and get it up to about 40 hours a week of care. The one area that I really had a problem with him, it was like an old wound, was him waking me up. So when I was a kid, 7 years old, we lived in a very small little, 2-bedroom apartment, and I would get woken up at 2 and 3 in the morning with him carrying on, drinking and yelling and arguing with my mom and stuff. And I remember being as a little kid, like literally shaking in my bed in the middle of the night, just terrified, because you're little. I'm, 7 years old. As I said, I got out of home. When I turned 18, we lived outside of Philadelphia, and I got as far away as I could. I went to college at University of Miami, South Florida. Here I am at 65, found myself moving back in with my father, and I just frankly felt like a real loser.
Le who? The her.
But when I moved back in, I said to him, "Dad, here's the deal. I'm not your nurse. I got your back. I'll protect you. I'll get your finances organized. I'll do all the administration that you need to have done for you. But the one thing is, don't wake me up at night. Don't wake me up." See, so moving in with him, I don't know if you can relate to this, but, introverts don't really like to live with people. I mean, when I was married, I really liked living with my ex-wife because she's quiet type. She's quiet. And, but I can't stand living with loud, boisterous people. I really need, quiet space and, my own space. And I didn't have that with my father, obviously, at my age. It was really stressful, frankly. One morning at about 4:30 in the morning, I'm fast asleep. I hear a knock at my door. I get up. "What's going on?" Open the door. It's my dad. And he says, "The aides are not here. They're supposed to be here on time." I said, "Dad, it's 4 a.m. in the morning. It's not even light out. The aides come at 10 a.m. He looked at me kind of confused. And so I got up out of bed and I said, "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to get agitated, but still in the middle of the night." So I, turned him around, walked him into bed, got him tucked into bed. And, so I had a combination of feeling annoyed by him, but also feeling really sorry for him because, when I was young and for most of his life, he was a very active man. He was a hunter. He hunted grizzly bears in Alaska and antelope in Colorado. He was an avid fisherman, surf fishing on the Jersey coast and the Florida coast and fly fishing on streams and lakes in Ontario. I spent 2 weeks with him fishing in Ontario when I was a teenager, and he'd always go fishing whenever he could in Pennsylvania in the lakes. And, he had a million fishing poles and a ton of guns. And he always kept such great care of everything he had. Absolutely great care, because he really was Army military through and through. Even all of his shirts, he'd write his name in indelible ink in the back of his shirt. So this was the beginning of my final chapter of life with my father. I hated living with him. And I'm not ashamed to say that. We can have family, we can love our family, but not, want to be with them every day, right? And like I said, our personalities were so different. Actually, I found out that I'm actually a lot more like my father than I used to realize. But he did give me a confidence, which he modeled to me as a kid, which has served me well in my life, And he had a really good heart. He had a sweet heart. And when he converted to Christianity later in life, it really changed his life. And he was always so grateful because I sat down with him and explained the gospel to him. And that's how he became a Christian, was through me. This is the beginning of the story. That year, it was 2023. I was pretty suicidal. I was depressed. I did not want to be living with my father. I wanted to reconcile with my wife, but it was clear now that the divorce paper came through and we were divorced. I ended the year, another awful Christmas, 2023, alone with my father. He didn't want to celebrate Christmas, and I didn't want to celebrate Christmas. All he wanted was a nice meal. He wanted turkey and mashed potatoes and stuffing and all the trimmings, and so I made him a Christmas dinner. And I did. I showed up. I took good care of him. So I was willing to fight for him. I advocated for him against the system, bureaucratic system, the Veterans Administration, and a really sketchy John Hancock insurance. Oh my gosh. I mean, unreal. These people owe policyholders money, and they'll do anything they can to get out of paying. And my dad paid into this long-term assisted living insurance policy. He had it for my mom and him. He paid into it for years and years. And hours and hours that I spent on the phone arguing and threatening John Hancock. But I did get satisfaction with them, but it was exhausting. And he couldn't do any of that stuff. He got more and more dependent, as the years went by.
And we want to make sure that
I was able to leave Cemetery Lane, moved in with my father, and I did take one of his rooms and totally took all the old furniture out, and I made it into like a little place for me, a little sitting area, found my old TV, set the room up. So it was a little bit of a boundary. It still wasn't my own place, and I still couldn't feel a sense of privacy and peacefulness, but it was better than living on Cemetery Lane. No home. My ex for 35 years was my home. We lived in many beautiful homes, but we also lived in places that weren't traditional homes. Like we lived in our 4Runner traveling out west when we were first married. It was wonderful. We were home. I was home when I was with her. Same thing on the boat. Her presence made that boat a home. It was a boat, but it was a home when she was there. And that's how I ended 2023, living with my father at age 65. If this is the only video you're seeing, you can start with chapter 1 and understand the arc of this whole story, starting over at age 65. Hey everybody, how you doing? Thanks for all the comments. I'm working on answering them. In the meantime, last episode, I found myself moving back home at age 65. I had promised my mom when she passed away that I would take care of my dad. And so here I was, age 65, moving back home, a home that I hadn't been in 50 years? And I just kept wondering, when am I ever going to get my life back? And then one day I realized the life that I had is gone. It took me over 2 years to realize that my wife was serious. She divorced me. And for 2 years, 2.5 years, I met with her, begged her to take me back, but to no avail. And so finally, I found myself kind of in a limbo, not able to go back into the past that I wanted so badly, not sure of where to go into the future, and meanwhile feeling extreme responsibility to do something that I really didn't want to do, which was to be back home with my father. So the years went by. I did my best to care for him, like the last episode shows. And at the end of 2024, I realized that it was time for me to surrender, to give up my dream of reconciliation with my wife, who is now my ex-wife, and to stop meeting with her. And I realized I really couldn't be friends with her because I still loved her, but it was time for me to move forward. And so on New Year's Eve, 2024, alone, my dad was asleep, no one to celebrate the new year with. Excuse me. I prayed. I said, Lord, I don't think I'm meant to be alone. I'm not a monk, not a hermit. I pray that you would bring me a woman that I could celebrate life with, and not just any woman, a pretty woman, a young woman, a woman that was easygoing, a woman that knows how to give and receive love. And I thought, gosh, I'm so old. Does such a woman even exist? I don't know if she existed in America. And so I began to think and pray and try to problem solve to figure out where could I meet the type of woman that I would still be attracted to when I was 18 years old, but I'm not 18 anymore, am I? What woman would want to be with me? Or I should say, what young, pretty woman would want to be with me, an old guy? So I prayed. And the new year, I began to make some things happen. And I began to recover. I began to start feeling better about myself. Sure, I still had dreams, several times a week of dreams of being with my ex-wife, and everything was fine, like nothing had ever happened that was bad, no trauma. But I was moving forward, and I realized that in order for me to have any type of future, I did have to let go of the past. And, many of you have mentioned, early on, just accept, let it go, let her go. But that took me a couple of years to do. I mean, we were bonded and attached for 35 years. That's a long time. It's a very long time. So it took me about 2.5 years to begin to realize I'm going to stop chasing her. I'm going to turn my back and walk away. Let's see what happens when I decided to pursue the new course.